Tensions between Russia and Ukraine have hit an all-time high. The threat of a war is looming large over Eastern Europe, and in the midst of this all is President Volodymyr Zelensky. Earlier today, Zelensky signed a decree to increase the size of Ukraine's armed forces. With this, the Ukrainian president aims to increase the army's strength by 100,000 troops over the next 3 years. However, Zelensky has said that this does not mean that war with Russia is imminent. Remember that in his recent addresses, Zelensky has repeatedly urged the West to not spread panic and said that such a narrative is capable of destabilizing Ukraine's economy. Speaking in the parliament, Zelensky also urged the lawmakers to stay calm and united and to not exploit a standoff with Russia for political gains. Zelensky made the comments ahead of talks with NATO member countries. NATO member states have rallied around Ukraine in recent weeks. The US, Britain and Poland among the countries offering military aid to Kiev, while calling for tough sanctions against Moscow if Russia launches an attack.
Support for Ukraine is the biggest since 2014. Unconditional and ongoing. Military aid for Ukraine is the biggest since 2014, priceless and continues to come.
With tensions on the rise last week, the European Union chief proposed a €1.2 billion financial aid package for Ukraine. Ursula von der Leyen said that the package would be made up of both emergency loans as well as grants.
Today, the Commission has proposed a new macro-financial assistance program for Ukraine of up to €1.2 billion, as announced by President von der Leyen last week. This program will enhance the macroeconomic stability of Ukraine and the overall resilience of the country in the current context. MFA funds will be made available to Ukraine in the form of long-term loans on highly favourable terms. A swift adoption of this proposal by the Council and the European Parliament will allow the Commission to immediately disburse a first tranche of €600 million. The second tranche will be paid following a positive assessment of progress by the Ukrainian authorities in a limited number of short-term policy measures.
There are currently nearly 250,000 people in Ukraine's armed forces, which are vastly outnumbered and outgunned by Russia's. Concerned with the security of their homeland, Ukraine's defense reservists vowed to take up weapons. They have even started practicing with guns and training for patrol and ambush.
Максимально високо. Той самий принцип. Якщо я беру руку так, повноцінне без якихось змін. Ви не зарядили назад до себе. Є. Тепер вперед.
And let's get in further details now from our correspondent Susan Tehrani, who's with us live from New York. Susan, what is America hoping to achieve through these talks between the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and his Russian counterpart?
You know, at this point, expectations have really been so high on the path for diplomacy between the two sides, and there's been so many mixed messaging about this response, written response on the part of Russia regarding its security concerns and whether or not it has responded to what the United States responded. And I think that's really going to be a cause for concern, whether or not they're going to be talking about Russia's main concerns, and that being to beef up military access to Ukraine on the one hand, and what Russia wanted, and that was a guarantee that Ukraine would not become part of NATO on the other, which the Europeans and the United States basically wrote in their statement. That NATO's open door policy would continue. That would not happen. Now we have to see, what the Russians come back to. But rhetorically, they're going to say that, we're going to find a diplomatic path forward somewhere on the middle ground. They've already said that perhaps regarding the number of troops on Russia's borders, bordering countries in Eastern Europe is something they can discuss. The issue of arms control is also on the table. Perhaps that's a middle ground as well. But I think what is very important right now for the Americans is to talk about what would happen if Russia does not come around, basically. And that would be the hard-hitting sanctions that the Biden administration is talking about, and also whether or not these draconian sanctions, if you may, would be appealing to countries like Europe and beyond, because as we know, unilateral sanctions by the United States won't have the effect that the Biden administration wants to have, and won't be a bargaining chip, whether in these talks or other talks diplomatically with Russia. They really do have to be international sanctions to sway Russia to not invade Ukraine at the end of the day.
And all this while, no information at this point has emerged on the details of the contents of Russia's response. We're leaving it there for the moment. Susan Tehrani, thanks very much for joining us with those details and inputs. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.